Hello everyone, my name is Paola. Welcome to Mindalia TV livestream with episode number 3 of PGS the movie, How to Transform Your Life. In this occasion, we have Bill Bennett and Jennifer Cluff, producers of the documentary PGS, Intuition is Your Personal Guidance System, who will talk about the 3 categories of intuition. Right before we welcome our guest, I would like to remind you all that if you would like to help the world through Mindalia, there are a few things you can do. One of them would be to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like on this video, or leave a positive comment down below. Please note that with these actions, you are helping us reach even more people around the world who can benefit from the content that we share on our channel. Also, to allow your live interaction, please remember there is a chat on the side of your screen, which you can use to ask the questions to our guests, who will kindly answer to them by the end of their talk. Without further delay, please welcome Bill Bennett and Jennifer Cluff. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're ready, and the screen is yours.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Want to kick off?
Yes.
Go on, kick off. Don't kick me, kick off.
Paolo, you want to tell us about the 3 categories of intuition. How did you discover there were 3 categories?
Well, I'm sure there are more than 3 categories, but I feel comfortable. Comfortable compartmentalizing intuition. When I came to make the film, I found the whole thing very, very complex, and it didn't make much sense to me because I would read books and what people talked about intuition wasn't the kind of intuition that I experienced.
Okay.
I experienced an intuitive voice while I was driving. It told me to slow down, and on hearing that voice, I did slow down, and that voice saved my life. But that's different from the kind of intuition that is talked about sometimes when somebody makes a gut decision or something like that. So after reading widely and really thinking about it over a long period of time, I came to the conclusion that intuition can be grouped into 3 broad categories. The first category is what I call survival intuition, which is about survival of the species. The second category is what I call cognitive intuition, which is intuition based on expert knowledge or past knowledge, forgotten knowledge. The third category of intuition is what I call mystical intuition, which is the kind of intuition that I experienced, where mystical intuition cannot be explained by any rational means. It is a voice in a car, dreams and synchronicities and coincidences, in flashes of precognition, clairvoyance, and that kind of thing. Survival intuition comes from the body. Cognitive intuition comes from the mind. Mystical intuition comes from the soul. Those are 3 words. Come on, I dare you.
No, come on. So you're going to have to explain to us what survival intuition is. What do you mean by survival intuition?
Well, survival intuition is a very animalistic, primitive form of intuition that we all have. Look, we all have intuition in those 3 categories. But survival intuition is, as I say, it's about survival of the species. So it is the feeling that you have when you find yourself in a place where somehow you sense that there is threat and you don't quite understand where that threat is coming from. So what happens is you get the hair on your arms or the back of your neck rising. You know, just as animals do when they sense threat. Flight system within your body, the adrenal system and so forth, and that part of your brain that is connected to fight or flight. Mothers have a very, both mothers and fathers, have a very highly tuned sense of survival intuition for survival of their children. For instance, I was told this extraordinary story. Somebody had seen the film, and they called me up and told me this extraordinary story of how they were at a dinner party, and they just had this sudden, inexplicable kind of sense of like cold water running through their veins, and immediately they thought, my son. This woman
said that she heard a man's voice say, "Where is your son?"
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but she felt this sort of cold flush in her body, and she had trusted her son at this dinner party with their maid. And what had happened was the maid had been distracted. The son had fallen.
He was a little baby. He was 2 years old.
2 years old, had fallen into a fish pond, quite a deep fish pond. When she heard this voice and felt this feeling, she immediately rushed out and found the boy. Luckily, she found him before he was drowned and was able to resuscitate him. But that's an instance of survival intuition. Yeah.
It probably got well. Number two. What's number two? That survival's number one. Now number two is cognitive.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish with survival intuition.
Yeah.
It is really quite interesting. I had another story where a woman was walking home from work and she was late and she was tired. She wanted to take a shortcut through a park.
That's right. Yeah.
And she got to this shortcut and then she just had this sudden feeling that she should. There was a town hall clock. It struck 10 o'clock. And for some reason, that clock, when it struck 10 o'clock, she just felt this sudden chill and a real sense of I cannot go through this park. And she walked the long way home. The next morning, she was watching the morning TV news show, and a woman had been in the park the previous night, and they put the time of death at approximately 10 p.m. So had she walked through that park, she would have been killed. This is once again survival, animalistic, primitive intuition working to keep the species alive.
And she obeyed her intuitive impulse.
That's right. Yeah, she did. I mean, fascinating stories.
Now, can we go to cognitive now?
Well,
number two?
well, cognitive intuition is what most people think of as intuition. It is a gut feeling, a sense of knowing, but it's based on what I call expert knowledge or past experience, or another term that I've come up with. I come up with these terms, in the making of this film. What I call subsumed memory recall. In other words, memories that have been so deeply embedded in your system, you've forgotten that you even have them. You can recall them when you need to, and people put that down as intuition. To give you an example, a CEO of a company might have a complex decision to make, and perhaps that CEO has had research groups and the board has given papers and so forth. But the CEO makes what would seem to be an instant gut decision on something, almost like he's ignored all of that advice and made a gut decision. But the gut decision is a function of the extraordinary knowledge that particular CEO has of his or her company, of all of the details involved in the decision-making process. And what that CEO has done is he has pulled from this storehouse of expert knowledge what he needs to make that momentarily so-called intuitive decision. Well, that's what I call cognitive intuition. Cognitive intuition is based on a person's expert knowledge of their field of expertise. Sportsmen, sportswomen, elite athletes talk about being in the zone and doing something intuitively. There's a wonderful interview with Ayrton Senna where he talks about Ayrton Senna being a former 3 times world champion Formula One driver, regarded as by some as the best Formula One driver ever to have lived. He talked about how he when he was driving, he almost didn't feel like he was driving, that he stepped into another dimension, he called it, and it was as though somebody else was driving the car. Now, an elite athlete would say he was in the zone. But what he's doing is he is calling upon his expert knowledge and understanding of driving.
Yeah.
So that's cognitive.
That's cognitive, number
cognitive
2.
Intuition. Yeah.
Now, number 3, mystical.
Well, mystical intuition is what I call true intuition.
I think they're all intuition.
Yeah, well, I think mystical intuition is the proper intuition.
Bad intuition.
The true intuition.
Yeah.
Because mystical intuition is from source. It is direct messaging from source, from the God that finds its way to you through various means to give you information that is to guide you on your path through life. That's what mystical intuition is. So mystical intuition, look, we're not talking about intuition. Its primary function is to keep us safe from harm and keep us alive, because we can't hope to fulfill our purpose, the purpose for which we were born. We cannot hope to do that if we're dead, or if we're so sick that we're incapacitated and we can't play out those things that we need to fulfill our purpose and our destiny.
So, in the making of the film, you had a voice right at the beginning, and that you put down to mystical intuition?
Absolutely.
I would put it down to a combination of mystical and survival.
No, tell me that.
How do I do that? I do that because your life was saved.
Oh, well, okay. So just because my life was saved, you call it survival.
Yeah,
so.
I would say it's a combination of those two.
No, but it wasn't animalistic or primitive.
No, it wasn't. You're quite right there. That's okay. They interweave, and I think just the mere fact that you've been able to divide intuition up into these 3 categories enables me, I don't know about anybody else, to be able to feel how my intuitive system works. I know when I am working, I know when I'm scared, and I'm not scared because I'm afraid.
You're
I'm
scared.
Yes. Well, yes, a little bit.
You scared me.
Yeah, always.
That's always good.
But
that's the base of a good marriage.
How can I talk now? Now you've thrown me right out. This is your way of stopping me from talking about intuition in this way. But if you do those 3 categories, you can start to see how your own personal intuition is working, because it is so vast and confusing. It's good to be able to have it a little bit segmented, even though I think they do work together.
Look, the fact is that intuition works within the energetic realm. Whether it's survival, whether it's cognitive, or whether it's mystical, it does work within the energetic, etheric body, the energetic realm within our chakra system and so forth.
But it goes right through, like people say they have a gut feeling.
Exactly. And so, we can talk about that at another time, the mechanics of that and how that actually works. But the fact is that when you're dealing with energy, there are no boundaries, so there is crossover, there is interlacing of energy within these 3 categories. And so, whilst it's convenient for me to be able to delineate these categories, so that I can make sense of it, for myself, I'm very conscious of the fact that what we're dealing with energy that is interlaced, that is interlocking, that can cross boundaries, because there are no boundaries when it comes to energy.
And in order to make...
So you are scared of me, eh?
Yeah. In order to make the film...
That's cool.
In order to make the film, you used your intuition, your cognitive intuition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely, because it was based on expert knowledge. See, I take no ownership of the content of the film, because I believe that was guided.
That was mystical intuition.
That was mystical intuition.
Because you didn't know who you were going to see until the day before, often.
Yeah.
Or sometimes on the day.
I was led from person to person to person. But cognitive intuition allowed me to use my intuitive craft skills and technique to package the film in the way that it is. So it was very much a combination of cognitive and mystical intuition in the making of the film. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, we might be up on time, so Paola?
Well, we can still talk about this.
Thank you, guys. Yes, we have reached the end of the talk. I'm hearing myself a little echo, but I think we can go ahead and just continue. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing these amazing concepts. I'm sure our Mindalia audience have found this information very, very valuable. Before we continue, I would just like to remind all our Mindalia viewers that Mindalia is a nonprofit organization, and our main goals are to help spread human knowledge and to promote planetary solidarity by all means. An important way to collaborate with Mindalia is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to give us a like on this video, or leave a positive comment down below. That way we share this information with even more people around the world. I'm going to go ahead and pass on to you guys the questions from the audience. I'll have you both on camera, and we'll start with the very first one. It says, how do you experience mystical intuition in your life?
Well, you can experience it in various ways. One of the things that you first have to do is you have to acknowledge that it exists and that it works. And you then have to be willing to accept it as a functioning system. But how mystical intuition works is through dreams, through a voice, through synchronicities, coincidences. It sometimes works through numerology. Signs are a form of mystical intuition trying to connect with you. In other words, you might be puzzled about some crisis in your life, and you go to a coffee shop and you're sitting down having coffee, and two people at a table nearby within your earshot start talking about the exact same problem that you are trying to solve, and your intuitive system kind of like tunes into that conversation and picks it up, and maybe picks up keywords and stuff that allows you to find a solution to the problem that you have. Now, that's an instance of synchronicity or coincidence, but it also shows how mystical intuition can work. Now, one of the things about mystical intuition is that most of us don't place significance on it. We think, it just so happened that those two people.
That was weird.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. That was weird.
That was weird.
And so you dismiss it. But part of the accessing of intuition is to give significance and meaning to things that you would otherwise dismiss.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you, Bill. Let's go to the next question. It says, could it be that we mix all these types of intuition at once on a certain situation?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Okay, so let's just take the example of me hearing the voice and the way that I responded to that. Just for those people who haven't seen the film and don't know, what happened was I was driving early one morning. I had a green light up ahead. I heard a voice which told me to slow down. I ignored it. I didn't believe it, if you like. I kept going, went to speed up again to get through the intersection on the green light. The voice came in a second time and said more emphatically, slow down. At that point, I did slow down. And then this huge truck ran a red light. I then quickly swerved and jammed on the brakes and avoided the collision that would have killed me. It would have killed me had I not slowed down beforehand. And I then was able to negotiate the intersection and pull up and so forth. So what happened there was I had mystical intuition kick in the form of the voice. I then had survival intuition come in that immediately saw the truck. My adrenaline kicked in and all my senses were highly tuned. My reactions were much faster than normal. I responded in a way that was part of the fight or flight system within the body. But then I knew exactly what to do. So my cognitive intuition then came in. So I knew how to handle the car. I knew how to avoid the, the accident. I knew exactly what to do in that situation. So in that instance, I had the 3 types of intuition help me survive.
Great, thank you, Bill. Let's go to the next question. How to recognize the difference between cognitive intuition and just regular thoughts based on fear instead of expertise?
Well,
it's a good question.
Regular thought based on fear
never gives you an answer. When you, do you mind?
I'm terrified of what you're about to say.
Thought based on fear never leaves you calm, and it never leaves you peaceful. If you are truly using your intuition, whether it be mystical, cognitive, or survival, you always know this is what I must do. There's never any doubt. Fear will always be in doubt. I don't know if I should do this. And so you constantly are like a little rat going around a wheel of thinking. Intuition never does that. Intuition always leaves you peaceful, always leaves you calm. You always know that's what you should do. It doesn't mean you always follow, but it does leave you calm. And that is the difference.
Paul Selig says something really interesting about fear. He says the purpose of fear is to create more fear. It's a really interesting way to look at it. And intuition never deals in fear. As Jennifer said, you know when your intuition is speaking to you when there is absolutely an absolute surety to the answer. Paul Selig says that fear is a lie. And the reverse of that is he says through his guides, there has never been a lie told that has not been told in fear. So if you think about that, that's how your fear processes work. There has never been a lie told that has not been told in fear.
True. Thank you. Let's see the next question. Could mystical intuition come from a higher self? Come from your higher self?
Absolutely, it does. It is intuition deals with you, but it depends on how you look at these things. Spiritualists would say the higher self. Christians would say that it was the Holy Spirit. Buddhists would talk about it in terms of resonance or karmic imprint. So on one level we can talk about a higher self. Other people could say it is the voice of your guardian angel. So in the end, I think it's the same thing. You know, I think what we're talking about is we're talking about a connection to higher realms. That connection really can be expressed as a higher self or can be expressed as other terms as well. But whatever it is that connection. It's sort of like that router, if you like. You know, we're talking terms of computers.
The higher self is a very simple way of looking at it, because what a higher self is just yourself at a higher level. And it does tend to cover off all those things you're talking about. I find personally an easier concept that suits my way of thinking very, very well.
Thank you for your answer, guys. This question is for Jennifer specifically. How do you personally experience intuition physically?
Physically, well, I have trained myself over a long period of time, and certainly having heard all the interviews and been with Bill on this journey all the way through, the way I do it, which is similar to the last question, I like to work through my higher self, which connects me up, right up, all the way up through to source, or all the way into source. And I like to ask, what should I do? Should I do this or should I do that? And I sort of make myself a little bit like a dowsing rod or a pendulum, and I get a yes on my answer. And I find it very useful for me to work that way. Now, not everybody is going to be able to work that way. Bill doesn't work that way, but that's the way I work. So I work on, these are my options, which one is the right one for me, and I go through each of them, and the one I get a yes on is the one that is always right. And I've long since stopped doubting that as a useful process. You know, lots of people might say it's a bit silly, but for me it works sensationally. And I love
it. At a restaurant, she'll get the menu and she'll look at it and she'll run a finger down the menu and you can just see her lips go, this one.
I know, as it goes down. This one,
yeah.
I'm having that.
And
what is that? And I'll say to the waiter, I'm having this.
And that's
I haven't got my glasses
lamb's
on.
testicles.
Tell me what it is.
Or,
and I go, you're kidding, I'm having that. Oh.
Spider's carcass or something like that.
Yeah, it's true. I do that. But it's fantastic. For me, it's fantastic. Now, that's not for everybody, but for me, it's fantastic.
But she gets the most horrible meals sometimes that way.
Horrible. I love them. What are you talking about?
Higher self connected.
Stop it.
That's brains.
Let's move on to the next question. What are okay, this one's a little tricky one. What are the forms on which these mystical energy work within us?
What are the forms on which these mystical energies work within us?
Correct. You guys were talking about mystical energy, mystical intuition. I think it refers to that.
Now, is the forms within us or without us? What forms? What do you reckon that question is about?
Well, I think it comes back to this notion that intuition is a personal guidance system. So it works differently with every different individual. It is personal. It's one of the things that both Jennifer and I have discovered in this whole process is that, you know, she explained before, what works for her doesn't work for me and vice versa. But one of the most powerful ways that I believe mystical intuition works within most people, some people have a capacity to be able to remember their dreams and then you know, write down the dreams when they wake the next morning, when they wake at night, and so forth, and then find meaning in those dreams. But there's no sort of one size fits all. I'm writing the book of film at the moment, and I talk about intuition being bespoke. It's being hand-tailored for each of us. And yeah, so I don't think that you can say that it works this one particular way for everybody. It is individualized.
And the other thing is, Bill's never heard that voice since, and he needed that voice at that time to save his life. So what might work for me last week, I know may not work for me this week, because there's something about it that once you start working with it, it wants to expand your ability to work with it. It's constantly teaching you more and more about you and your system and your ability to work with a divine force. And I find it I'd love to know exactly what the person meant by forms, because I think that actually speaks of something really quite wonderful. I'm not quite sure whether we've answered the question. I hope so.
Thank you, guys. We have reached the last question of our night, and it says, what type of intuition did you find to be the most useful in the making of your documentary?
That's a good question. Without doubt, mystical intuition. Mystical intuition guided me and led me to the people in the film. probably my cognitive intuition helped make decisions from a craft point of view in the sort of processes of making the film, but the film would not be anything without the people in it, and mystical intuition guided me to those people, and it guided me sometimes in the most mystical ways, things that were just inexplicable, you know, having flashes of precognition about where to go, and then trusting that and following that. In the film, I talk about the 5 steps to access your intuition: stop, listen, ask, trust, and follow. Trust and follow were 2 of the really big ones in the making of the film. I trusted my mystical intuition, and then I followed through. Whenever I did that, things worked out.
Sure did.
That's how we met.
Yeah, we did.
We met intuitively.
Totally.
Okay, they're adorable. Thank you so much, Bill and Jennifer. Again, Bill Bennett and Jennifer Cluff, for sharing your conversation with us. And thanks to everyone else for watching. I'll give you guys a few moments just to say bye to our audience.
Goodbye. Thank you very, very much for everybody who's listening to us. It's fantastic, and it's lovely to do this. And thank you, Mindalia.
Thanks, Paolo. Thanks, Mindalia, and thank you to the audience. I should say that Jennifer and I have been married for 35 years now. 5 years?
36.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
37.
And
you're normally right on.
we have more fun as every year passes.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again, you guys. And to our Mindalia audience, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Mindalia TV live stream on a new episode of PGS, the movie, and how to transform your life. Thank you all for watching. Have a good night.
Thanks, Paolo.
Thank you.